What happens when a legendary icon walks into what she expects to be a friendly chat, only to find herself ambushed by a panel determined to tear her down? You won't believe what happens when Cher steps onto the view set. Expecting support, Bot walks straight into a calculated attack that leaves viewers stunned and the entertainment world buzzing. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It's a masterclass in how daytime television can turn toxic in seconds. With one of music's biggest legends caught in the crossfire of political tensions and personal grudges, brewing behind the scenes for months. Before we dive into this story, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. Because what happens next is shocking. These hosts target someone who has been fighting battles longer than some of them have been alive. The atmosphere in the studio was tense even before Cher walked in. What should have been a celebration of her latest project quickly turned sinister. The hosts had clearly done their homework, not the kind that honors a guest, but the kind that prepares an ambush. As Cher settled into the guest chair, her trademark confidence filled the studio. She had no idea that Whoopi Goldberg and the panel had essentially laid a trap. The opening pleasantries felt forced, with smiles that didn't reach their eyes and compliments that sounded rehearsed. Cher, ever professional, played along, but even she couldn't anticipate what was coming. So, Cher, we're so excited to have you here, Whoopi began, her voice carrying a hint that this conversation wouldn't stay in safe territory. You've been very vocal about your political views lately, and we wanted to discuss some of your recent statements. The shift was immediate. What had started as a promotion for Cher's work became something entirely different. The other hosts leaned in, their body language moving from welcoming to predatory. Joy Behar's eyes gleamed as if she had been waiting for this moment, while Sunny Ho straightened in her chair, ready for battle. Cher's expression subtly changed. Decades in entertainment had taught her to recognize a shift in energy. While I've always been honest about what I believe, she replied carefully, her guard rising. Honest? Yes, Whoopi continued, her tone sharp, almost reckless. But some of your recent comments about certain political figures have raised eyebrows, and frankly, some of us here find them concerning. The audience felt the room grow colder. This wasn't the warm, welcoming environment The View usually projects. It felt like an intervention, or worse, a public ambush designed to make Cher look bad in front of millions. I'm sorry, but I thought I was here to talk about my new music, not to be lectured on my constitutional right to express opinions, Cher said, disbelief in her voice. Joy Behar pressed on, but Cher, with the platform you have, don't you think you have a responsibility to be more measured? Some of your social media statements have been pretty inflammatory. The trap became clear. They weren't there to celebrate Cher's achievements, they were there to publicly shame her for speaking her mind. The irony was palpable. A panel built on expressing political opinions, now attempting to silence another woman doing the same. Cher's legendary temper began to simmer. I've been fighting for civil rights and social justice since before some of you were born. I've earned the right to speak my mind, and I'm not going to be told to stay in my lane by people who do exactly what I do every day. The audience murmured as tension grew. Whoopi tried to regain control, but only made it worse. Nobody's asking you to stay in your lane. Cher, we're just suggesting you think before you tweet. Cher's voice rose, fiery as ever. Are you kidding me? I've been thinking about these issues longer than you've been on television. I don't need a lecture from you about social responsibility. Sunny Host jumped in, emboldened by the confrontation. Sure, surely you see how some statements could be divisive. We live in such a polarized time, and celebrities with influence need to be part of the solution, not the problem. The condescension was unmistakable. Here were these hosts, treating a woman who had been a cultural icon for more than 5 decades, like she was a naive newcomer who didn't understand the weight of her words. Cher's eyes flashed with anger, and anyone familiar with her work knew this was not a woman who backed down from a fight. Part of the problem, Cher repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm. Let me tell you what part of the problem is. Part of the problem is people who think they can tone police others while saying whatever they want themselves. Part of the problem is this idea that celebrities should shut up and sing, but only when it's convenient for you. The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they may have pushed too far, but it was already too late to retreat. Whoopi, seemingly compelled to assert control as moderator, pressed forward with what would prove to be a critical mistake. Sure, we're not trying to silence you. We're trying to have a conversation about responsibility and consequences. When you make certain statements, there are real-world implications. Real-world implications. Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you think I don't understand real-world consequences? Do you think I haven't faced them? My entire career, I've been canceled, boycotted, and criticized for decades, and I'm still here because I refuse to be silenced by people who think they know better. The tension in the studio was suffocating. The audience sat in complete silence, watching what was no longer a friendly interview but a full-scale confrontation between entertainment heavyweights. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of what was becoming television history, just not the kind anyone had planned. Sensing the situation spiraling, Joy Behar tried to inject levity. Well, we certainly admire your passion. Sure, Maybe we can talk about your new album instead. But it was too late. The damage was done, and Cher wasn't someone who let an attack slide just because someone wanted to change the subject. Her response set the stage for what would become one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The hosts were about to learn they had severely underestimated who they were dealing with. My new album, Cher's voice cut through the studio like a blade, her eyes blazing with the fury that made her a legend. Oh no, we're not done here. You brought me on this show under false pretenses, and now you want to move on like nothing happened. That's not how this works. The shift in energy was seismic. Whatever control, Whoopi thought she had evaporated instantly. The other host looked stunned, realizing they had unleashed something they couldn't contain. Cher moved from defense to offense. Decades of experience dealing with industry bullies guiding her every word. You want to talk about responsibility? Cher continued, her voice rising. Let's talk about the responsibility of hosts who invite guests just to ambush them. Let's talk about the responsibility of women who should be supporting other women instead of tearing them down for ratings. Whoopi's face darkened. Now wait just a minute, Cher. Nobody ambushed you. We're having a conversation about a conversation. Cher cut her off, her legendary temper fully unleashed. This isn't a conversation, Whoopi. This is a hit job, and we both know it. You coordinated this attack, and now you're trying to gaslight me into thinking it's something else. The audience was transfixed, visibly uncomfortable, others energized by the raw authenticity unfolding before them. This wasn't sanitized daytime drama. This was real, and it was explosive. Joy Behar jumped back in. Sure, I think you're being a little paranoid here. We're just trying. Paranoid? Cher snapped, turning on her. Joy, I've been in this business for 50 years. I know the difference between a legitimate interview and a setup, and this lady's is a setup. Behind the scenes, producers were likely panicking, but the cameras stayed on. This was television gold, even if it wasn't the kind anyone planned. Sunny Hostin, who had stayed quieter during the escalation, tried a softer approach. Sure, I think we all need to take a step back. We're all passionate women, and sometimes passion leads to misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? Cher laughed sharply. Sunny, there's no misunderstanding here. You all came at me with prepared talking points designed to make me look bad. You questioned my intelligence, my judgment, and my right to speak my mind. And now you want to call it a misunderstanding? Whoopi's patience was clearly wearing thin, her own temper starting to surface. Sure, you're being dramatic. We ask tough questions of all our guests. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. The studio fell completely silent. Even the audience seemed to hold its breath at the audacity of Whoopi's words. Telling Cher, a woman who had survived every challenge the entertainment industry could throw at her, that she couldn't handle tough questions was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Cher's response was calm but lethal. If I can't handle tough questions, Whoopi, I've been handling them since you were still figuring out how to get into this business. I've been blacklisted, boycotted, criticized, and attacked by people far more powerful than you, and I'm still here. So don't you dare question my ability to handle anything. The attack had become personal. This was no longer about politics or social media posts. It had turned into a battle of wills between two strong women, and neither was backing down. The other hosts seemed frozen, unsure how to navigate the escalating hostility. Whoopi, feeling challenged, doubled down. Well, if you're so tough, why are you upset about a few questions? Maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is that you know we're right and don't want to admit it. Audible gasps rippled through the audience. Even by The View standards, this was crossing lines. But Cher, seasoned by decades of battles, knew exactly how to respond. The problem, Whoopi, is that you invited me here under false pretenses, ambushed me with coordinated attacks. And now you're trying to make me the villain because I refuse to play along with your game. Here's the thing, you don't understand me. I don't play games. I've never played games, and I'm not about to start now. Joy Behar, sensing Whoopi was over her head, tried to intervene. Sure, we're all friends here. We're on the same side politically. We should be able to have these discussions without getting personal. Cher's voice dripped with disdain. Joy, friends don't set traps for each other. Friends don't coordinate attacks. Friends don't try to humiliate each other on national television. What you did today wasn't friendship, it was betrayal. The word betrayal hung in the air like a weapon. The hosts were rattled. Their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of making Cher look bad, they had made themselves look like bullies, attacking a respected icon. Sunny Hostin made a last-ditch effort. Sure, I think there's been a real miscommunication here. We respect you enormously, and we would never intentionally just stop. Cher's voice cut through like ice. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was an accident. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now you're trying to backtrack because it's not going your way. The studio felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. The audience was silent, witnessing something that felt less like a television interview and more like a real-time demolition of professional facades. Cameras captured every expression, every word, as the confrontation escalated. Whoopi, realizing she had lost control, made one final attempt. Sure, this is my show, and I won't be spoken to like this. If you can't conduct yourself professionally, maybe you should leave. The gauntlet had been thrown. Sure, the icon she wasn't backing down in front of millions watching in real time. Her response would determine whether this ended with apologies or escalated into a confrontation, dominating headlines for weeks. Cher rose slowly, her movements deliberate and powerful. The studio seemed to hold its breath as she stood tall, her presence commanding every inch of space. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried the weight of 5 decades in entertainment. Your show. Cher's voice was dangerously quiet, the calm before a storm. Let me tell you something about shows. I've been headlining shows since you were still trying to get your first break. I've sold more records, filled more arenas, and entertained more people than you can imagine. So don't dare try to intimidate me by reminding me whose show this is. The audience was completely transfixed. This wasn't just a celebrity spat, it was a masterclass in handling bullies. Delivered by someone who had been doing it longer than anyone else in the room. Whoopi's face reflected shock and rage, clearly not expecting Cher to fight back with such force. And you know what else? Cher continued, her voice growing stronger with every word. You want to talk about conducting myself professionally? Let's talk about professionalism. Professional hosts don't ambush their guests. Professional hosts don't coordinate attacks. Professional hosts don't try to humiliate legends just to score cheap points with their audience. Joy Behar tried one last intervention. Sure, please, let's just know. Joy, sure, cut her off, turning to face her directly. We're way past let's just anything. You all made your choice when you decided to gang up on me instead of treating me with the respect I've earned. And now, you act surprised because I refuse to play the victim. The power dynamic had completely shifted. What had started as an attempt by the hosts to dominate their guest had become Cher, systematically dismantling each of them with surgical precision. Her decades of experience navigating industry, politics, and media manipulation were on full display. Sunny Hostin made a final attempt at diplomacy. Sure, we never meant for this to become personal. We just wanted to. Cher's eyes flashed. Wanted to have a discussion about how I should think, how I should speak, how I should use my platform. You wanted a discussion about silencing me. And when I refused, you made it personal. Whoopi, feeling her control slipping, stood to match Cher's energy. Nobody's trying to silence you. Sure, but if you're going to come on television and make wild statements, Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Wild statements. Whoopi, everything I've said is based on facts, research, and genuine concern. You decide it's wild because I don't say it the way you want. That's not your call to make. The confrontation had reached its boiling point. The studio felt electric, the audience silent. Witnessing to entertainment, legends facing off in a moment that was both historic and deeply personal. The cameras captured every glance, every expression, every word, reshaping the landscape of daytime television. You know what's really wild? Cher continued, her voice building to a crescendo. What's wild is that a group of women who built careers speaking their minds are now trying to tear down another woman for doing the same thing. What's wild is, you thought you could ambush me and I'd just sit here. What's wild is, you underestimated exactly who you were dealing with. Whoopi's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Sure, if you don't like how we do things here, maybe you should leave. Cher finished the thought for her. Oh, I'm leaving. Whoopi, but not because you're kicking me out. I'm leaving because I refuse to sit here and be disrespected by people who should know better. I'm leaving because I have more important things to do than be attacked by cowards who gang up on their guests. The word cowards hit like a physical blow. The other hosts visibly flinched, realizing the confrontation had gone far beyond anything they expected, but Cher wasn't finished. She was about to deliver an exit speech that would be replayed for years. You want to know what responsibility looks like? Her voice filled the studio, commanding and powerful. Responsibility is standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. Responsibility is using your platform to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Responsibility is not backing down when bullies try to silence you. She began gathering her things, her movements deliberate and dignified. What you did today wasn't journalism. It wasn't even good television. It was a coordinated attack on someone who has spent her entire career fighting for the things you claim to care about. And the fact you don't see a problem with that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. The studio was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. The audience watched in stunned silence as Cher prepared to leave, her dignity intact despite the attempted character assassination. Joy Behar made one last plea. Cher, please, we can work this out. This isn't how we wanted it to go. Cher turned to the panel one final time, her expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. Joy, this is exactly how you wanted it to go. You wanted to make me look bad, and instead, you've shown the world exactly who you are. The only difference is, you thought I would sit here and take it. She paused, letting her words sink before delivering her final blow. I've been fighting battles longer than some of you have been alive. I've survived every attempt to silence me, diminish me, or make me disappear, and I'm still here. I'll be here long after people forget this pathetic attempt to tear me down. With that, Cher walked toward the exit, her head held high, dignity intact. The cameras followed her every step, capturing what would become one of the most iconic exits in television history. At the edge of the set, she turned back one last time. "For the record," she said, her voice carrying across the silent studio, "I don't need your approval to speak my mind. I never have, and I never will. The people who matter know who I am and what I stand for, and that's all that counts." The studio doors closed behind her, with finality. The hosts sat in stunned silence, realizing their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of diminishing Cher, they had given her a platform to show why she had remained relevant and powerful for over 5 decades. Slow applause began in the audience, growing to a standing ovation for the woman who had just demonstrated what it means to stand up to bullies with grace, power, and unwavering dignity. The cameras captured it all: the empty chair, the stunned faces of the hosts, and the audience's approval as the show cut to commercial. One thing was clear: this wasn't just a celebrity walkout. It was a defining moment. The day Cher reminded everyone why legends become legends, not just for their talent, but for their refusal to be diminished by anyone, anywhere, at any time.